Hey Jazz fans, thanks for taking the time to watch another 5-minute fight against racism. This one focuses on black history, which is something the NBA hoped fans would think about when they decided players could put messages on the backs of their jerseys like equality and ally and say her name and I am a man. Let's look at that last one, I am a man, because that's what Mike Conley of the Utah Jazz selected for his jersey. I saw a few people online reacting like, I'm a man, what's that all about? So let's look at what it's all about. It's a civil rights slogan from the 1960s, and Mike wants us to think about the history and the meaning behind it. Back in February of 1968, 2 black sanitation workers in Memphis, Tennessee got caught in a torrential rainstorm. Instead of going home for the day and collecting a paycheck for their day off like white workers could have done, they decided to ride the storm out in the back of a garbage truck, a truck that the city already knew was defective. The trash compactor malfunctioned and it crushed both men to death, which would have been bad enough, but then the city refused to accept any responsibility or compensate the grieving families. And that was the last straw for over 1,300 black city workers who'd already been demanding better safety measures on the job, higher wages, equal treatment to white workers, overtime pay, sick leave, and a lot of other benefits that many employees today take for granted, thanks in part to protesters like them. So the people organized public marches and sit-ins to show how serious they were, and they went on strike. Imagine the kind of pressure that would rise in a city without any garbage collection, tens of thousands of pounds of trash piling up. But rather than negotiating with protesters, the city government turned to local police, who used mace, tear gas, and billy clubs against peaceful and not peaceful protesters alike. Memphis Reverend James Lawson preached this sermon to the strikers. At the heart of racism is the idea that a man is not a man, that a person is not a person. You are human beings. You are men. You deserve dignity. And so the phrase, I am a man, became the movement's rallying cry. They decorated signs in clear, bold, striking font. As the strike went on, civil rights activists from around the country gathered to Memphis to lend support, including Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. In March, he urged a crowd of 25,000 people to stick together and, regardless of their exact station in life, to see themselves as sharing a common human destiny. And Dr. King returned to speak in Memphis a few days later on April 3rd when he delivered this fateful speech, talking about all the threats on his life.
And then I got into Memphis, and some began to say the threat, or talk about the threats that were out. What would happen to me from some of our sick white brothers? Well, I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead. But it really doesn't matter with me now, because I've been to the mountaintop. I don't mind. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And He's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over, and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. So I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
Dr. King was assassinated the very next day in Memphis at the Lorraine Motel. And now that place has been converted into the National Civil Rights Museum, where Mike Conley would visit during his time with the Grizzlies.
When I come back here, it's chills, just chills, from the beginning. When you stand on the balcony where Dr. King was shot, it's like, you're speechless. You get that sense of just, what these people did to sacrifice for you to have the opportunity to have today. I really, take a lot of pride in my position as a basketball player and being in the public eye. Whether it's 50 years ago or today, we're in a new challenge in our era. We've made strides, but not, long enough strides.
When Nike introduced the 2018 City Edition NBA uniforms, Memphis debuted the MLK 50 Edition, a tribute to the historic strike. The uniform designers said that Conley especially understood it right away, even though it didn't include the exact words, I am a man. The designers also said that the jerseys were intended as a call to reflection. Where are we at today in the fight for justice and equality? We're at a time when some people will look at that jersey or at Mike Conley's message on the back of his saying, "I am a man," and complain. Complain that it's getting in the way of their entertainment or that it's too political. Like this commentator who said he watches sports to get away from all this garbage. He actually said garbage. I don't even think he recognizes the terrible irony, but I'm sure the sanitation workers would recognize it. Mike Conley seems to recognize that too many people don't know what the phrase "I am a man" refers to anymore, but I think that's one reason he chose it. In fact, he said that phrase will hopefully trigger their mind into questioning, what does that mean? What's he trying to get across from this? And it leads them to searching. It leads them to educating themselves on why I'm doing what I'm doing. In part, Mike Conley's doing it because Dr. King's dream has yet to be realized. As a kid, I remember watching his famous "I Have a Dream" speech with pride and amazement, thinking that I lived and breathed in the fulfillment of his vision. But the more I've been listening to Black people in America today, the more I've come to realize how much further we have to go. An important part of our work today is understanding the history, and that's why I appreciate Mike Conley choosing "I am a man."